Problem is, Linda Bates has been at the center of every one. It's been Linda Bates, Yolanda Rubio, Linda Bates, Sandy Pierce, now Linda Bates, Michelle Mulliken. She's at the center of everything.
There's no proof of any violence. The only witnesses Michelle has is Sandy Pierce, of all people. They have been trying to cry violence before, and no one believed them. For the last 2 years, I've dealt with Sandy Pierce until she found out she could lose her job.
Do you have a police record of her?
Of course I do.
As anybody can attest, the area in Smalls when you go to break is a very small area. You walk past each other, either going one way or the other. It's very easy to brush up against somebody.
We know what happened. It's on record. We have it. We know what happened. Michelle, to be honest, there was a lot of people interviewed, and
My two people that witnessed it. The only two people that witnessed it. A lot of people interviewed. Who else got interviewed?
well, that's like, Linda was asked. You were asked. Whoever you.
Linda
listed.
lies.
Okay, but see, the interesting thing is, Michelle, it seems like your
How did I get fired?
always corroborate your story, and then Linda's is always the complete opposite. So how do you?
I'm sorry. I need
No,
you to get a
just-
copy.
I
No,
just-
there's no excuse for her.
2 weeks pass and she's doing it again. She's trying to knock me down. Somebody pulls me out of the way and she aims for Sandy and harmed her that day. And again, Linda got away with assault. There were 5 people there that day.
Michelle, I'm just trying to tell you that I don't want you to think that people
I'd like-
weren't talked and discussed about it. But, it was brought up and then it was never really heard from again.
What about the 2 weeks later when she hit Sandy?
Same thing happened.
Oh yeah, it didn't happen.
No, I didn't say, no, I didn't say
Did
that.
she hit you the other day
I
out when
didn't say
she
that.
parked or anything?
The company refused to take action on this verified incident, and as you will note in the Union Exhibit A, made no record of the complaint being filed and did not keep any written documentation from the incident.
There's no proof of any violence.
When you've had issues with Linda in the past, correct? Before this Matt incident?
Yes.
And when you had this Matt incident that day, you saw Linda move the mat that you thought it was in the proper place. You told her, whatever you said to her, it wasn't in the proper place. At that point, tell your supervisor?
I told Crystal, because I went around the corner and Crystal was coming
Is Crystal your
towards me.
supervisor?
No, because my supervisor wasn't there. Danny was there, but he wasn't he wasn't.
See, that's where I'm confused. You got an issue with an employee. It sounds like it's been an ongoing scenario and a thing, and you've probably been warned at least read the policy. I would think if you thought you were being harassed by this other employee or wronged by this other employee, why you would not tell your supervisor immediately at that time and let that whole thing escalate.
I've done it for 4 months. I'm told I'm petty. Anything I complain about this woman, I'm petty.
So because of that, you just took it upon yourself and you didn't talk to your management team.
I talked to Crystal after the incident.
Crystal's not a supervisor.
Crystal is a
Oh,
supervisor.
Crystal is a supervisor? Okay.
Sandy Pierce and Chris Peak.
Who is Sandy Peak?
Pierce.
Sandy Pierce is another employee in the small sort area that's had problems in this situation over the past year or so, but she has since corrected her behavior.
It's a small group of girls.
The only person that has not been able to work and play with others is Michelle, and I just wanted to bring that point up.
As I had been to Dan Kelly and others to constantly ask them to please ask her not to talk to me. Then Michelle started in. Michelle started with the envelopes and complained constantly. Linda's taken too many envelopes, and envelopes are lighter. They help your numbers. They've even tried shutting the computer off. All I have to do is turn it back on. Michelle went outbound, which is the trucks, and to enlist people to file complaints against me. Sandy Pierce proved that she will stop at nothing to get me fired when she went outbound to enlist people. A person who is habitually overbearing, that would be Sandy and Michelle both. She and I used to get along until my numbers surpassed her numbers on the computer. And then it all changed. It all changed. She was so upset by it at one time that I actually yelled at her, and I felt bad about it, and I wrote her a card to apologize, but it didn't change. It was just constant after that until we got to this point where she alleges violence because everything else has failed. Envelopes. This is all about envelopes. Then one day the worst happened. Who moved a mat to my position, called me a bitch, started screaming for a supervisor. I had already been informed months before that, after complaining about what's going on down there, to just come to work, clock in, keep my mouth shut, do my job, clock out. I said nothing. Nobody did anything about her losing her temper, calling me a bitch, so when I had the chance, I went up in the office to complain. Next thing I know, we were both temporarily fired until further investigation and escorted out. I have avoided Michelle at all costs and tried not to be in the same area until we start work. There is absolutely no proof.
So is it appropriate for Linda to even be around what she's doing at that time? She's not even on the clock. Why would she come over there where Michelle was at?
That's where, if I can speak to that, she communicated to me that she went over, she checked the lineup, she saw where she was going to be positioned for that day. She went over there, set her lunchbox or her bags down, and was waiting for work to start.
So that's the time she decided to start jerking Matt's around when she's off the clock?
That would be apparently correct.
She's supposed to work off the clock?
Negative.
It's good to have that clarification because Michelle was doing the work duties she was assigned. Company Exhibit 2, where Linda says I came in, punched in, sat on Small's cart with my bag. That's where she wasn't on the clock. She had punched in, but she wasn't on the clock. It wasn't her start.
Linda Bates communicated to me that she had said nothing, did nothing, and upon our investigation and the interviews, we determined that to be accurate. We did not feel it was correct to punish another employee that absolutely did nothing at that point in time.
Michelle wrote in her own statement, she mentions the word, I shouted.
Were you fired under the contract for shouting or raising your voice?
No.
Okay.
Did you raise your voice?
I did. It was a loud place.
It was a loud place, so you raised your voice?
Yeah.
So really none of this really happened. It was just a normal day, and they came and got you and terminated you.
It was far from normal.
I was brought back with pay because she was the only person doing the screaming. Started screaming for a supervisor.
And even in her own statement, she says she shouted.
Is Bates Linda?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's the foul language that Linda said she said?
She said she blew up and called me a bitch, started screaming for supervisor.
That's the word you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the words that Banker said in Linda's statement about
The F-bombs in
yeah,
the...
yeah, is that there?
Yeah, that's in exhibit number 4.
Is it in Linda's statement?
No.
Also about in the middle of that, he says, we also talked to Danny Banker, the part-time soup in the Smalls area. Danny stated that he did not see what happened, but he did hear Michelle yelling. We asked if he heard what was said, and he said he did not, and he did not know. All he heard was Michelle yelling. Then you come to Danny Banker's statement on Exhibit 4. At this point, he's in there with a very specific quote, that's fucking ignorant, what are you fucking stupid? That's not even in Linda's statement. I don't know where this came from. He told his upper management that I didn't hear what they were saying, then he gives a statement saying this is exactly what she said. I don't know how you go back and forth between that.
Can you tell me why that Linda's statement doesn't mention anything about comments from Danny Banker, that fucking ignorant and what are you fucking stupid? Imagine why Linda wouldn't put that in there.
In Linda's Bates, during the interview, she said that after the initial exchange of words, the being called a bitch and then screaming for a supervisor, Linda tuned Michelle out.
She testified she wasn't cursing, right?
Yeah, she was not cursing.
Okay. To the company, why does Matt put that in his statement? Began yelling and cursing.
I do not know.
Okay. Is she fired for those statements?
She's fired for creating a hostile work environment in the small store.
Okay, is she fired for these statements? That was my question.
No.
Okay. Is she fired because she allegedly called her a bitch?
She's fired because she created a hostile work environment.
Okay, would you want to answer my question?
That would be, I imagine bitch would be part of that.
It was only when she had to go to state, the first time ever that anybody alleged violence. When she had to go to state to get her job back, that she brought up any allegations of violence at the state hearing and claimed I slapped her hands. Dan Kelly will attest to the fact that it was not brought up the day of the mat moving. She was hired back without pay.
Yeah, I'd also like to bring up that in Michelle's initial statement in the investigation, at no point in time did she say that she had grabbed the mat or that Linda had hit her.
What do you mean it was said?
I'd spoke it, I'd said it, but I didn't write it down.
Who did you say it to?
These are these two guys right here, Andrew and Dan, on my first
After her
initial
written,
meeting.
after her written statement to the company, after her written statement, when did you find out about the hand slapping, or did she say that during some of your interviews and just didn't write it down?
At the end of the written statement you had, before the line is drawn in where I seal it, she made the statement.
As Michelle said, there was physical contact. This is before we had the local level and everything. On her own, Linda decided it was necessary to put in her statement there was absolutely no physical contact between us. That question hadn't even come up yet.
She's doing it just to antagonize me. She's trying to.
I think that might be, Michelle, between you and I think that's probably a valid point. I think she is trying to, I don't know why, but
She's trying to make me flip my lid, so I yell at her again. You fire me again. That's all she's trying to do.
I think she's trying to do some agitating there, so I would agree.
I have dealt with every day since this Civil Rights Commission thing. Every day I've dealt with her coming and making snide remarks to me under her breath, walking by me. Anything, every day. The last 2 days, she verbally threatened that she's going to file a lawsuit against me. That's when I decided to go up to the office and file harassment. She was getting to me, that's threatening. The others I can deal with, I've dealt with that. If I'd have just, if I could look back now, I wouldn't have said a damn word. I'd have kept my mouth shut to keep my job.
On January 8, 2014, Michelle Mullica filed a 4-page complaint against Linda. Exhibit 5 is a copy of that complaint.
What I'm going to ask you to do, all right, and we're going to try to move forward with this, is just take a deep breath. You really...
I've had a year of this, I know. It's been going on for a year.
You know, take a deep breath.
Linda, I have a question for you. When all this happened on the 5th, the alleged parking lot incident, why did you go to management and tell them for her not to talk to you that day?
Because of what I mentioned before, that she had spent the last month or so walking by me since she came back from an injury.
The reason for the termination of Linda today is due to the fact that she is creating in Mullica's mind, her perception is that Linda Bates is creating a hostile work environment.
Do you believe she is?
I believe that they have both had part in this situation. I believe that over the past 4 or 5 months, I don't think Linda has been as active in that event as Michelle, but I think they both have ownership in the relationship on the small sort. The only thing I can do to stay in compliance and to try to resolve this would be if they can't take the resolution we try to put before them, then to stay in compliance they would both have to go.
That's what we're here today.
Linda talks to me and she explains what's going on with Michelle Mullica. I believe her. I believe that she feels that those things that are taking place with Linda are real.
Both Linda and Michelle on the 5th brought something to management's attention.
The 5th is the incident. Linda came into the building. She came up to me.
I just want to know if they both made a complaint that day.
No, they didn't. Basically what happened,
Well, did they talk to management about something on the 5th?
Yes, she talked to me. I went and then talked to Mullica, and then Mullica communicated information back to me.
Did Michelle come to you prior to that and say,
No.
hey, I got a problem?
No.
Not until you went to her?
Was my point, yes.
Okay.
Dan, the woman scares me and told me I have to park next to her.
I'd like you to write a statement to me, put it on paper. You feel that she is creating a hostile work environment against you and she is harassing you. Please, just give me a statement telling me straight up, hey, I feel she's doing this to create a hostile work. Put some thought. You can do it now. You can do it at home.
Try to do it at home. I won't be able to write nothing while I'm shaking.
That's fine.
On Tuesday, January 14th, 2014, Linda was brought into a meeting along with myself, Michelle Mullica, UPS Labor Manager Joe Brown, UPS Human Resources Manager Mike Arndt, and Day Sort Manager Dan Kelly.
Yeah, so just go ahead and write something up, give it to me and put it on paper. I have a meeting scheduled for today with Human Resources, and it is my obligation to provide a safe work environment for everybody.
Michelle has gone out of her way and has proven that she will do whatever is necessary to keep her job at UPS, including switching shifts, so that she no longer has to work with Linda Bates. Now Michelle sits before you terminated for moving her car on January 5th or for filing a complaint about a hostile work environment as required by company policy.
That states that UPS Day Sort Manager Dan Kelly clearly stated, "I believe you, Linda." I want Dan to explain how this went down, because as Linda was explaining what she was saying, Dan did get up and say, "Linda, I believe you. And I'll give you my interpretation," and then Dan will say exactly what it meant.
Linda then stated that since she was 100% innocent, she would not move to any different shift. We then took a caucus, and when the company came back in, Michelle informed the company that she was willing to move to the preload shift and that Linda could stay on the day shift as long as Linda wouldn't double shift on the preload, so that she would not have to work with her at all. Linda then stated it was her right to double shift and they could not take that away from her, and that they would have to fire her. The company then stated that either both of them moved or there was no deal. After Linda refused to move to a different shift, the company terminated both Michelle and Linda and took their ID badges and escorted them from the property, and neither has worked since.
At that time, the company offered a unique solution to this problem. Both employees needed to work at different sorts, they would not be working with one another. Staying on the day sort was not an option. This would allow both employees to remain employed with final warnings for violations of the workplace violence anti-harassment policy. Because a mutual agreement could not be reached, Linda and Michelle were both terminated for continued violations of the policy.
At that point in time, to stay in compliance with the law, we had no option but to follow the policy and to terminate their employment. So we could not find a solution to that. So that is the reason behind that chain of events. I have two people that, in their own perception, I believe the other one's creating a hostile work environment against them. We try to resolve it. We try to be able to put the two on different source because of the petty nature of how they work together. That was unable to be reached, and that was the reason for us moving forward on the termination.
It goes through the presentation, kind of talks about how the meeting went, and Linda was asked if she'd be fired if she didn't choose a different shift, and UPS Labor Manager Joe Brown stated, "I didn't say that yet. I point blank asked Linda, you need to pick a shift, the twilight of the night, because Michelle had already picked preload." She goes, "When are you going to fire me?" And I said, "You need to tell me what sort you're going to work on." We tried to get a workable solution, but it was...
So when we were speaking to that, that's what I'm saying. Linda, I believe you. I don't think you're lying to me. I think this is really a legitimate concern. I know this petty stuff does bother you, and we have had those conversations, and I do believe that.
We pulled Linda in, we pulled you in, everybody's been talked to, and we said enough's enough. We said we want to keep you all down there in the small store because we know if we separate you, put in different parts of the building, that's not really a good decision either.
This is the point where Dan Kelly said specifically, "I believe you, Linda." In that meeting, Dan sided with her. Not slightly, not kind of, very explicitly, "I believe you, Linda." Nothing in here. Dan Kelly, the sort manager that deals with this operation on a daily basis up until today, had an unequivocal belief of Linda Bates and what she's done, and has no time indicated that she has done anything to violate the policy.
Yeah, I'll tell you where I'm at, Michelle. I personally, this shit she's doing, if it was me, I would just blow it off.
It is basically a he said, she said. I've been told this over and over again. He said, she said. So my point being, if I have an exemplary record, and I've never done this before, I never had this kind of behavior before, why am I terminated? That's the bottom line. No punishment, no nothing. I'm terminated.
Dan, you may not realize this. She's very mean.
I understand that.
The union put on the record that you made comments of complaints against the person that's before us today, and that you weren't able to bring anything in writing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you tell me why you would do that and then not be able to back it up?
Look, I'd like to flesh it out a little bit. When we said that there was other complaints, the complaints that were coming across, and Dan can speak to a little bit of it, but what we had and what we were dealing with was what Linda was complaining about Michelle. Michelle feels she's been antagonized by coworker Linda Bates, and this has been known and tolerated by the company without any effort to fix the situation.
We've done everything as a company we felt we could to try to give them both a safe work environment, and we have not been successful to, so we have taken action to resolve that.
Did Michelle threaten anybody this day?
Yes.
Dan?
Not to my knowledge, she did not threaten anybody.
That's the question.
And even Dan Kelly suggested the fact it may be jealousy because I am a hard worker and I keep my numbers consistent.
What I'm going to ask you to do, all right, and we're going to try and move forward with this, is just take a deep breath. You really.
I've had a year of this, I know. It's been going on for a year.
You know, take a deep breath, cleanse your breath, okay? So what you're telling me right now is that, from what I'm hearing you think that she is trying to create a hostile work environment and harass and intimidate you in the workplace.
I am saying that, yes.
That's your perception.
That is my perception.
Okay, then what I would like you to do is I'd like you to first just get your composure. I'd like you to write a statement to me, put it on paper, that you feel that she is creating a hostile work environment against you and she is harassing you by the things that she's doing.
Thank you for writing something up in regards to her. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so just go ahead and write something up.